Hey guys, so we're looking at a video called History's Evil Queens and Their Evil Schemes by Chat History. We saw the male equivalent through History's Most Evil Kings. I think that's what it was called. Either way, I was introduced to a lot of interesting characters, such as Timur and how he trampled upon a bunch of children, which is something that has never left my mind. Even though it's been like over a year, I'm still kind of traumatized after hearing that. And Ferdinand, I think it was Ferdinand, and and his black museum. Either way, I'm really interested in now seeing more awful people and what atrocities they committed. So, yeah, I don't really have much else to say other than this video is linked down in the description down below. Hard to miss. It's literally the first link you'll see. And if you enjoy my content or my commentary, my thoughts, etc., feel free to like, comment, subscribe. It will really help out my small but humble channel, and I would really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Without any further ado, let's get to it, shall we? Let's look at History's Evil Queens and Their Evil Schemes by Chat History.
Queens and their evil schemes. Well, that's a stretch. When you come across big bad figures in history, you might wonder if their infamous traits get passed on to their children.
Okay, this is Mary. Wasn't she called Bloody Mary? And I could be confused, but I'm not sure if she's the one who... Or was it Elizabeth? One of them bathed in the blood of... Or said to have bathed in the blood of, like, virgin girls. Something like that. I think it was Mary. I could be completely wrong. In my head, there are, like, two different people, but... Bloody Mary, I'm pretty sure I at least got that right?
Case of Mary Tudor, daughter of certified neckbeard King Henry VIII, the apple didn't fall far from the royal tree, but not for the reasons you may expect. Little Mary was born in 1516 and was actually the fifth child of King Henry and Queen Catherine of Aragon, but the only one to survive past infancy because babies are fragile. Henry loved his daughter and provided her with a healthy education in music and language with a strong Catholic upbringing. But the problem with his daughter was that she wasn't a son, so she wasn't seen as a suitable heir to the throne of England. Mary, what do you want to be when you grow up? Queen of all England. No. With that being the case, Henry the...
Oh my goodness. Something I want to comment about Chat History is that dude's hilarious. Like, we've seen only a few of his videos. I reacted to only a few, but he is hilarious in his content. Like, dude always gets like a good laugh out of me. And yeah, Henry, man, he was so obsessed with having a son, and the one son he did have, you know, that kind of lived, ended up dying. And eventually, like, yeah, the reins fell to Mary, and then was it Elizabeth? I don't know why. Mary and Elizabeth are in my head, forgive me for my ignorance. But essentially, the throne ended up falling to his daughters, so... I also don't think his line lasted that long after him. I think it may have ended after his daughters. So yeah.
VIII sought to sow more seeds and give the law of large numbers another go. After all, he needs a baby boy to slam on the throne and bear the crown. To do that, he sought to divorce the now barren Catherine for a wife that was a bit more fruitful. Henry then lumbered down to present his case to the manager of the Catholic Church, the Pope. "No way, Henry, them's against the rules," said the Pope. But Henry argued, I'm the king, I'm the one with
absolute power,
and annulled the marriage anyway.
Yeah, that's when Henry realized, I can do whatever I want, I'm the king. There's a lot of things about Henry. He's kind of become a popular figure even among the mainstream outside of the history buff historian circle, mainly because I think the musical, definitely the musical, it's called Six, I believe, and there are bangers in that musical. I have listened to a few, and yeah, even mainstream to like, I know women who don't care about anything about history, and yet they know about Henry and everything he did. So I don't know. I'm not sure that's a good thing. He's that infamous, but yeah.
That little act of defiance was a precursor to the English Reformation, which toned down the Pope's authority within the Catholic Church. Instead, Henry made his own church, the Church of England, and put himself in charge, and he was all, nice. He then got himself a brand new womb on legs, Anne Boleyn, who blessed them with a daughter in 1533. Great, another one. When he divorced Catherine and started slop-flopping with Anne, Henry illegitimized Mary's claim to the throne and stripped her of her royal titles. From that day forward, a seed of resentment and hatred within Mary took root that would continue to grow for years to come. Eventually, Henry got his heir. Little Edward VI spawned into the world in October 1537, but had connection issues and lagged out in 1553 at the age of 15, a short 6 years after Daddy Henry himself expired. Blech. With no other heirs, there was really only one person who could take the throne, Lady Jane Grey, King Henry VIII's great niece. But Mary was royally ticked off, being all... After gathering a gaggle of supporters, Mary had Lady Jane's 16-year-old dome lobbed off and took the throne.
Dang.
Now in power, Mary's main goal was to re-establish Catholicism as the one true religion within England, since evil Papa Henry played a part in the Protestant Reformation, which diminished Catholic support. To help with that, she went and married Catholic fanatic Philip II of Spain, which was in the middle of the highly unexpected Spanish Inquisition at the time. She also reinstated heresy laws and began her purge of heretics within England. Basically, if you weren't or didn't want to be Catholic, then you could just get out. But Protestants protested her authority. No, it's just one word. Oh, that makes much more sense. With some light pushing and heavy shoving from her new husband, Mary decided to fight fire, with actual fire, by burning people. From 1555 to 1558, Mary had almost 300 people burned at the stake for heresy, truly believing that it was the only way to cleanse England of blasphemous false religions. To her, it was a God-given mission to rid the world of these heretics, and the people of England would realize in time that it was for the greater good. But the only thing that they realized was that she was a few sandwiches short of a picnic. Her scorched earth approach tanked her political approval rating and tarnished the image of Catholicism. She ultimately got down with the sickness in 1558 at the age of 42. Because of her violent antics, Queen Mary I of England is forever remembered in history as Bloody Mary, which is also a pretty disgusting drink.
Alright, I at least got one thing right, that it was Bloody Mary. It was a completely different person. So, who's the king who bathed in virgin blood? Let's see. It was Elizabeth Bathory. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, that was bugging me, guys. I needed to look at that. But, yeah, either way, that's kind of the thing about religious persecution. I find in times of persecution, actually, that kind of makes religion fervor stronger. And, martyrdom is kind of inspiring to people of faith, so that doesn't surprise me that at the end that all backfired on her.
If you want your shot at claiming a throne, you're gonna have to start cracking skulls. This is what Empress Wu Zetian would eventually do. Empress Wu officially ruled over the Second Zhou dynasty in China from the year 690 to 705. She was known for having extremely high intelligence, strong political competence, and superior ambition. But history overshadowed her strengths with a reputation as one of the cruelest rulers in China's history. Though of course it has to be said that many of the individuals who wrote about her actions weren't exactly huge fans of being politically cucked by a woman.
Exactly. So we saw the Empress Wu series by Extra History, and it definitely gave a lot of insight into her, like even some of her more outrageous claims, such as, you know, chopping off the hands and feet of her opponents and throwing them in like tanks of alcohol or wine. Probably exaggerated a lot. And, you know, while definitely she did get rid of opponents through assassination, I don't think she was any more brutal than any other ambitious ruler, like, among men. Like, if anything, she just did, like, what we've seen a lot of other kings and emperors do, except the only difference is she was a woman, and therefore, you find in history, especially with, like, women in high power, kind of more criticized compared to men. I think maybe it's because it's more rare, because a lot of history with, like, a lot of rulers and leaders were men, so like when a woman's doing it, it's a bit different, you know? But it definitely gave me a new perspective on her. And overall though, she was incredibly intelligent. And yeah, I would really recommend checking it out. I think it would give you a new impression of her.
So perhaps some of the stories of her evil deeds are a bit exaggerated?
Yeah, and I also heard that among many other Roman emperors, such as like Tiberius or Elagabalus, for example, that there's some wild stuff written about them, and especially Elagabalus, like that dude. If you read about that guy, it's wild. But there have been like disputes on how reliable some of these more outrageous claims are, mainly being written by people who didn't like them or who wanted to discredit them after their rules. So, yeah, definitely, I think that's interesting in history, how certain like leaders can, while they could suck for sure or do bad things, sometimes like historians or people documenting will even take it up another notch just to be like, yeah, they really suck, you know?
Maybe. But maybe not. Born into a wealthy family with a loving and supportive father, Wu was granted a first-rate education in writing, politics, and music, a privilege not afforded to most women. In her spare time, she favored heavy reading in politics and boring government stuff, which made her more than capable of holding a position in political power. If she was a guy. But opportunity would soon come a-knockin'. Let me in. At just 14 years old, tales of Wu's intelligence and beauty made it to the Imperial Palace, and she was formally summoned to become an Imperial concubine under Emperor Taizong. This basically meant that she was now one of the Emperor's glorified slam pieces, but Wu knew that she was destined for greater things. Every journey starts with the first step, after all. The main duty of a concubine was to convert these into these. But Wu never did that. Instead, she would often find ways to openly discuss political affairs with the Emperor, something that was certainly frowned upon for someone in her position. The Emperor eventually went forever sleepy-bye, and his heir, Gaozhong, took the throne. As a side note, when an emperor died, any assigned concubines that produced no children—
yeah, they needed to be sent to, what, monasteries or something like that? I know Wu was sent to one.
—were sent to become Buddhist priestesses, which is what happened to Wu. But
did I say monastery? Well, you know, the same principle. Essentially kicked out to be a part of the religion stuff and whatnot.
Gaozhong summoned Wu back to the palace. This led to the belief that the two had a history of doing a little woohoo. Who? Wu. Not you. Now in the proud position of top-ranking concubine, it was time to climb higher. Her target? The Empress herself. Gaozhong's primary wife, Empress Wang, was a bit barren in the bush, and thus wasn't so good at the baby making. So, Wu showed her a neat party trick and shot out 4 boys and a daughter.
Oh my
an
gosh.
act that gained strong favor with the Emperor. Even Empress Wang herself adored the children, especially the newborn daughter. Oh, how cute is she? I know, right?
You killed my daughter.
Okay, so this is mainly what I knew Wu originally for. I was like, holy crap. When we covered the extra history series, you know, he kind of broke it down that possibly it was more of a stillborn crib, I think is the term, or crib-born, something like that. Kind of died in the crib, essentially, but Wu still used that death to essentially, in a political aspect, she may not have done it herself, but she still used the baby's death to essentially gain more political prestige and against her opponents. Either way, shows that pragmatism, right, and that like ruthlessness. Either way, whether she killed the baby herself or whether she just used its untimely death, like, still, like, you know, cold-hearted. But that's what you're gonna do to survive, because I looked at some videos about, like, life, or, like, there's these videos called It Sucks to Be a Medieval Knight, or It Sucks to Be a Jester in Medieval Times, or, like, these weird animated stories, and, like, some of them were It Sucks to Be a Concubine, and the court factions, and, like, the rivalries among them, and possibly almost dying anytime. It really is its own Game of Thrones, you know? Almost like a gilded cage in a sense. So again, either way, I hope she didn't kill the baby herself, but either way, man, still.
Yeah, Wu allegedly demolished her own infant daughter and blamed it on the Empress, even going an extra step and accusing the Empress and her mother of evil spooky witchcraft. And you know what? Gaozhong believed it. So Wang is demoted, and Wu is made Empress, and immediately has Wang whacked for good measure. But this wasn't a normal execution. According to some sources, Wu had the ex-Empress's limbs cut off and her remains placed in a vat of wine.
And here's is our house specialty.
I can already tell that this is gonna have a nice body to it. Gaozhong continued.
Yeah, that's wild. But yeah, I think that was a bit what might have been possibly. I keep saying possibly, maybe it did happen, I don't know, but there is some dispute that while she did definitely have them assassinated, the way they did it was probably less theatrical than that. But who knows, you know?
His rule for several years, but historians believe that Wu was pulling most of the strings, strengthening ally relations and executing or banishing political rivals behind the scenes. While Gaozhong then kicked the bucket in 683. With plenty of eligible sons, surely a new emperor was around the corner. Except, no. Apparently, there are allegations that Wu had banished many of the princes and even had the crown prince poisoned. While she did have 2 sons serve as emperors, she remained the puppet master, just like with Gaozhong. But in 690, sole power was given to Wu, and she was now the Empress Regent, holy and divine ruler of all China. Now in power, the only way anyone could take it from her would be from her cold, dead, wrinkly hands. Across the years, many rebels and rivals took that challenge, lashing out in attempts to usurp her throne, but none were successful. She even exiled one of her own sons after his wife spoke out against her. Any and all rebels were quickly eradicated. Despite her aggressive and manipulative climb to power, Empress Wu actually ruled very peacefully. She strengthened many relationships with allies, progressed gender equality, and eased taxes on peasants.
You know, that kind of is an interesting thing. Like I said, gender kind of has a big part, because I find like in history, especially like women who had power, oftentimes some sources would be even much harsher towards them by virtue of being, you know, women. And it's like, I think of like other, like when men do it, for example, like Augustus Caesar, his climb to becoming the Emperor of Rome was very bloody, and he himself ruled his family with kind of an iron grip, you know, banishing, exiling his daughter, his grandson, and you know, many people have said he's a monster for sure, but overall, he ruled incredibly well. He ushered in the Roman Empire, and his rule was great. He's considered one of the best emperors, even though, again, as a person, there's a lot about him where you could look and be like, he's a monster. Like, some people have argued that he's a monster, but he was a great ruler. And so sometimes in history, there can be a more lax view of him. Meanwhile, with Wu, definitely there are some sources, like I said, when I was aware of her, it was killing her own baby, which even may or not have happened. But again, kind of like that principle, her rise, she did what she had to do to secure her own rise, taking out whoever she needed to be, either friend or foe or family or whatever. And, you know, she had a pretty good rule. Even I remember that from the Extra History series, but, you know, more people would more sources you look back were more negative because, again, maybe, like, gender had a place to play in it. And, you know, again, I feel like so much in history, it's more rare to see a woman kind of in charge when it's usually just men. Even though I think Wu did kind of what most men would do in terms of their ruthless rise, you know? It's just different because, you know, she's not a man, so... I don't know, I think it just brings up a really interesting, like, you know, discussion or thought. Like, how much gender can kind of influence the historical view of a person. I don't know, I think that's a really interesting thing to look into. It's gotten me thinking, especially with her, about the whole situation, you know?
Allowing agriculture to flourish. Because of her constant vigilance against enemies, China experienced very few military engagements during her reign. So yeah, since she had a pretty good run as Empress, it wouldn't surprise me if tales of her wrongdoings weren't completely fabricated or at least overly exaggerated as a way to sway public opinion. The Empress fell ill in 705 and was forced to give up the throne to her son. She died shortly after. When discussing violent history, Madagascar may not be the first thing that comes to mind. But this forgotten stepchild of an African island known for vanilla and bad movies was once home to the...
that sucks. I don't think the Madagascar movies are that bad. I know it's all opinion, but that hurt. You know, I used to play the Madagascar PS2 game when I was a kid. That was like one of my childhood games. That brought back good times.
Kingdom of Imarina and the Marina people. In the 1800s, the throne was occupied by Queen Ranavalona I, sometimes referred to as Ranavalona the Cruel. A name like that is often earned, like Barry the Bashful or Dave the Dickless.
Oh.
With her reign saturated in the blood of her own subjects as well as foreigners, it's easy to understand why she earned her reputation as a merciless and brutal monarch. It all started way back with humble beginnings. Little Rana was actually born a poor peasant girl with an equally poor peasant family. As such, she had a bleak future just chock full of peasant things ahead of her. God, they were poor. But fate had other plans in store. Rana's destitute dad had casually stumbled upon a plot to assassinate the king at the time, and quickly warned him of the impending doom. After narrowly avoiding a classic comedy death, the grateful king demonstrated his gratitude by adopting Rana into the royal family and marrying her off to the prince.
Wow, that's a pretty good deal, right? Dang, I don't know anything about Rana personally. Like, I was aware, well, you know, I at least knew Queen Mary's nickname, Bloody Mary, and obviously we're familiar with Wu, but yeah, I don't know anything about Rana, but that's a pretty good start.
Now, Rana is royalty.
Oh, dang it.
Sweet deal, cause it could have just as easily been like, Your Majesty, I just found these plans to have you assassinated.
Good work, little peasant man. I would pat you on the head, but you're just too dirty. Also, I have to kill you as a safety precaution.
Oh.
You understand.
Nice guy. Oh yeah, real nice guy. Fast forward a bit, the king eventually dies. Rana's hubby prince becomes king, he dies, and then in 1828, the now 50-year-old Rana seizes the palace for herself, murdering any and all royal family members so that no one can even think of contesting her newfound power. Sure, she's powerful and all, but can she make your subscribe button glow?
Oh my
I didn't think
gosh.
so. You should click it. One of her first orders as Supreme Mega Ultra Ruler was to establish Madagascar as a self-sufficient nation. In doing so, she told everyone else to go kick rocks, pound sand, and touch grass, because Madagascar is a strong independent nation who don't need no foreigners. Oh yeah, she kicked out all of the foreigners too. Go on. To fully eliminate all outside influence, she had any colonials stripped of their titles, completely nullified all treaties with smelly Europeans, mainly the French, and straight up banned Christianity. Sorry, Jesus. Keep hanging in there, buddy.
Oh my
Queen
gosh.
Ranavalona sent Madagascar back into the Dark Ages, and good old tradition was back on the menu. Even the justice system was completely uprooted. Forget your run-of-the-mill witnesses, evidence, and testimony. That's boring. Instead, we have this. The trial by ordeal. Simply chug a frothy cup of poison seasoned with goopy chicken skin. If you throw up, you're innocent. So the French...
You know, it reminds me of like the witch stuff. Like there are some like tales of like how people prove they were witches. I think one of the famous ones is like you throw them in a lake or something, and if they float or something, they're a witch or not. I forget the specifics, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Like stuff like that associated with the medieval times and stuff, which obviously probably isn't the best way to actually gouge anyone's innocence or guilt, but you know, I kind of admired her desire to create a self-sufficient nation. I'm with that, but I think her policies are so far awful. Again, like he said, setting them back in the Dark Ages. I think, yeah, I think that's a bad idea. Essentially alienating everyone, and then just, I said, like, yeah, just kind of making them more primitive in a way. Yeah.
were all sacre bleu about Madagascar's isolationism, because they kinda wanted to grab a piece of that landmass. So they tried to do just that, but the Queen was all, no, don't touch, and kept fighting off the invaders. In 1835, the French made a really big push to take the island, but they were swiftly defeated and had to escargot the heck back to Europe. But to
Dang. I'm interested in what kind of technology that if they had like guns, I mean they must have, right? At least in terms of the fend off against the French. Like how did they do that? That's actually really interesting.
really drive home the idea that Madagascar was off limits, Queen Rana had the heads of French soldiers placed on pikes and littered around the beaches. This caused any would-be invaders to think twice lest they be converted into a pretty cool Halloween decoration. With outside influence now null and void, it was time to focus inward. The people of Madagascar were taught the importance of self-sufficiency. As such, they would only produce what they needed to survive and prosper. So they made guns, and bullets, and alcohol.
Okay, that explains. Yeah, guns.
Hell yeah. Infrastructure and factories were built using mandatory labor. This was a kind of tax that citizens paid through sweat and tears. After all, them things ain't gonna build themselves. As for the Christians on the island, they were executed, either by being hucked off ledges, burned, or by using a colorful method of progressive amputation. Not a good time or place to be a Christian. Many citizens were outraged at what the kingdom was turning into and attempted to remove Rana from the throne. Keyword being attempted. With all of this violence and lower quality of life, not to mention various diseases, the population took a nosedive. Some sources claim that between 1833
Okay, wait, let me look at this really quick. Ooh, that's bad. Dang, holy crap, dude. Oh my gosh.
in 1839, Madagascar's population of 5 million fellas was cut down to just 2.5 million. Not a good stat to tack onto your legacy. Rana reigned for 33 years before honking her last shoe in her bed in 1861. To her credit, she did keep colonial rule at bay while building up her own kingdom. She just, killed half of her country.
Okay, we have finally arrived to the virgin blood. That's the wildest sentence I've ever said. This is the one I was talking about. Oh my gosh, I don't know why in my head, Bloody Mary and Elizabeth, like, in my head, they always get mixed up. Almost like at times I think they're the same person and I attribute all their acts to one person, or at times I separate them. I don't know why these two are the ones in my head that always get mixed up. But yeah, the legend is she bathed in virgin's blood. What, to preserve her youth or something like that? There are better ways, I think, to do it. Maybe, like, health, drinking more water, not smiling or making any facial reactions as much, to tone down the lines. Yeah, but I guess medieval beauty or Renaissance beauty standards were different, huh? I actually did read that, like, some of the beauty standards women practiced, especially back then, like medieval/Renaissance, were actually incredibly dangerous and could really mess them up. So yeah, I know, like, what's the saying? Beauty is pain or something like that. But that they may have taken it a step too far. You know what I mean?
Yes, I know Elizabeth Bathory wasn't a queen. She was a countess, but her story more than makes up for it. So, as I said, Elizabeth Bathory was a countess in 16th century Hungary with quite the dark side to her. She is arguably one of the most prolific serial killers in all of known history. Horrific to many, wifey material to some. Now,
no matter how evil or toxic the woman, you'll have simps. You remember when everyone was simping over Kim Jong-un's sister? Like, and was like, oh my gosh, she's so hot. I'm like, eesh. I'm telling you guys, like, people are wild.
I'll acknowledge that some scholars believe these accusations to be completely fabricated and merely a smear campaign against her image. But we like to have fun here. So, little Lizzie was born into a rich and powerful family and forcibly engaged this geometric anomaly of a human, Count Ferenc Nadasdy, at just 11 years old. Don't worry, he was 16. This move was one concocted by both of their families as a way to combine each other's wealth and influence, and it worked. However, being all rich and powerful meant that you didn't really have much to do but sit around and be rich, so sometimes you gotta numb that perpetual emptiness with a little bit of purpose. When we fast forward to 1602, rumors began to circulate amongst the Hungarian population about the Countess's brand new hobby, murdering children. You see, Elizabeth Bathory was accused of torturing and killing hundreds of innocent, wide-eyed, rosy-cheeked girls with the help of her 4 servants. But why, you ask? Some believe that she harvested the young girl's blood for eternal youth, bathing in it as a nightly ritual, like some kind of Hollywood elite. But there is zero—
Yeah, adrenochrome and all that stuff. Oh, that's so awful. But yeah, that's the famous legend I heard with her.
solid evidence.
And you know, I gotta think about it. Like back then, by the way, I'm not. It kind of he brought up the point that there wasn't much to do. I'm like thinking like, yeah, the entertainment options back then were kind of limited, huh? I guess maybe have entertainers like musicians or jesters to come around. Go hunting, read, talk to people. Yeah, I could not survive. I'm so all my entertainment is sitting in my room, my cave, not leaving and watching YouTube videos. I wouldn't survive before the internet. I'd be so bored. My goodness. But I think I did read some accounts that like some of her accomplices, her maids and whatnot, actually testifying about murders. But then again, I don't know, like with the way interrogations work then, I'm not sure if there's any like forced confessions, if that even had a part to play. Because if what they said was true, some of the accounts and the murders she committed, yeah, she's like an awful serial killer. If there is any true validity, or if there's some blurring of the lines, like I said, you never know with these accounts, like with Wu or some Roman emperors, like the people writing it could have some vendetta, maybe either fabricate or exaggerate certain parts. So it's hard to fully ever know 100% with things like this, right?
remotely hinting that she ever really did this. In fact, those rumors didn't circulate until 100 years after her death. Others believe that she just liked doing it for the thrill of it, which is much more plausible. Messed up, but
I guess.
plausible. Her early victims were mainly adolescent peasant girls. With the help of her 4 servants, whose names look like they belong in an NHL hockey team, Elizabeth carried out the gruesome murders. I mean, these were nasty, so here's your warning.
Okay.
Victims were commonly beaten to death to the point of their bodies bursting open, with one particular victim struck over 500
Oh my
times.
god.
Others were reportedly pricked with needles and stabbed all over their bodies. In the winter, some girls were dunked in a nearby creek on cold, chilly nights and left to freeze. In the summer, others were covered in honey and left to be a feast for the flies. Elizabeth herself enjoyed putting red-hot metal rods on or in her victims. In 1609...
My goodness. Oh, dude, that's so awful. I'm sorry, I get uncomfortable. When I hear stuff like this, I don't like it. That's why I don't know how people can sit down and watch, like, serial killer documentaries. Like, my mom eats that stuff up all the time, and I can only listen to a few minutes, and I'm just like, I don't want to hear anymore, like, you know? Oh. Let's get through this video.
Elizabeth opened up a boarding school for young girls of noble birth. Dozens of girls entered this school, but none were ever seen again. And this was the tipping point. You see, no one really bats an eye when peasants disappear, but when it's rich girls?
Yeah, that's messed up, but it's true, huh? It's so messed up, but the moment she started picking on the wealthy nobles, right? That's when it's like, okay, we need to stop this. You know, there's an accomplice of Joan of Arc who was said to be a serial killer. Wait. Yes, this is the guy, Gilles de Reyes? I'm not pronouncing it, I know. But, he's apparently a serial killer who, some of the alleged crimes is, you know, his child murders, and one that really got me was I think he hung a kid or something, and then, like, basically jacked off on him. It's really awful, guys. Like, a part of me really hopes that these are exaggerated, because if this is true, these people needed to go. Like, I think he was caught after he started messing with more higher up, more noble, rich people, because before he was targeting more peasants, basically the people who most people didn't care about, which is sad to say. That sucks. All life, no matter what status, is valuable, but not everyone saw it like that.
No. That changes things. And now more people got involved, all the way up to the Hungarian king, who ordered a formal investigation. After a year of gathering hundreds of potential witnesses who claimed to have seen Elizabeth and the gang disposing of corpses, they were all properly arrested in 1610. Afterward, the accomplices testified separately, providing known body counts and horrific details of the deeds, even cross-confirming each other's stories. Because of this, historians believe that their testimonies are true recollections of the horror. Elizabeth is often pinned with the body count of over 600 victims. That's just crazy. In reality, historians believe the real number to be much lower, probably only around 300.
That's still way too much. I thought he was about to say, like, maybe 100. But no, that is still way too much to be associated with you. Yo.
Oh, that's still a lot.
Yeah.
All 5 were tried and convicted, with only 3 of the 4 accomplices being executed. Elizabeth avoided the death penalty, but was ultimately imprisoned within her very own dungeon, with limited contact to others for the rest of her life. A life that lasted only 4 more years. And that's the end of her story, but not the end of...
Man, just the awful people. I love you, Chat History. You keep introducing me and giving me more insight into just some of the worst people ever. In oddly comedic ways. He's great at what he does, by the way. Again, feel free to go to the link down below and check out his video and follow him. And if you liked any of my content or anything I had to say, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and help support my small but humble channel. Thank you all, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.